we usually hear about ancient Indian universities like Nalanda and Takshashila, but they were actually a part of a larger ecosystem of knowledge and learning that spread across ancient India. Can you tell us about this ecosystem?
Sure. So, most people seem to have heard of Nalanda and Takshashila, but actually, the whole of India was covered with educational institutions of different varieties. So, they were customized for different needs. And so, and today, even today, we have not finished excavating all those centers of learning. So, we just know some of them, but we are coming to know more and more as we are excavating more. So you're right. There was an ecosystem beyond just those centers of learning. So learning, it starts with how learning was a sacred duty of every individual. So every person was, it was his dharmic duty to educate himself and know more. So that is where the ecosystem started from there. And there were so many rituals that were performed to mark the different milestones. So when you started learning, there would be a Vidyarambha ceremony performed when a child traces alphabets for the first time. And then when the child goes into higher education, there's a ritual. So all these rituals were very important. People would be invited. And so that shows to you how important learning was in the society. And then, it was also about the love of learning. It was not forced on children. So right from a very young age, the seeds of curiosity would be planted. They would spend a lot of time in nature. Everything in nature was treated as a teacher. So it is teaching you. The sunrise is teaching you something. The river flowing is teaching you something. So that is the way it was, as if every element of nature was teaching you something. And if you read history, if you read the writings of, say, Zhuangzang, the Chinese traveler, he talks about how the love of learning is such that there are ascetics who have given up everything simply because they want to learn more and more. And they also want to teach. They keep traveling and they keep teaching whoever listens to them. They would not expect remuneration. They just teach for the love of teaching. All this has been mentioned. And then the ecosystem also can be seen in the way it was funded. Like, so it was, the students and teachers were freed from the job of earning a livelihood, from the mundane job of earning a livelihood. So when I say students and teachers, I mean those who went for advanced learning, those who went for higher learning. They didn't have to worry about who is going to give them food, because the whole society will come out and give them food, will give them clothes, will give them medicines, whatever is needed. So that was the kind of ecosystem, because the students and teachers were highly respected. So, the ethos of the times demanded that the Brahmins, the students who were learning as well as the teachers, had to live a very simple life. They could not be wallowing in riches, because then they are not Brahmins. If they are rich and if they are charging a lot of money to teach, they are not Brahmins. So the ethos of the time was that the real Brahmins would lead very simple lives, and it's the duty of the society to support those people who are studying and teaching. They are the ones who are researching. So they should never be for want of food. That was the kind of thinking in the society. And even during religious ceremonies, gifts would be offered to the Brahmanas. So, whether, Upanayanas, Vivahas, Brahmanas would be given presents. Brahmanas meaning students and teachers. It means nothing but well-known teachers and students, who have uh, led a life of sacrifice in order that they learn, right? Because it was a very demanding lifestyle. For those who chose the path of higher education, it was very demanding. It's not that everybody wanted to go there. People would be happy with doing other things. So, to be a Brahmana and to pursue higher learning means that person is getting up very early in the morning, who's chanting, bathing, always maintaining hygiene, following all the rituals, like, feeding the animals before feeding oneself. All those rules used to be followed by the Brahmanas. So, even today at the end of a puja or a homa, the custom is to feed Brahmanas. It's the same thing. You are going to feed the people who are sacrificing their lives for learning and teaching. So you are going to give homage to them. And then in the ecosystem were temples as well, because it was not just centers of learning like the Nalanda and the Takshashilas. They were also the temples which became centers of learning, because since learning itself was sacred, so when you went to pray at a temple, you would also listen to discourses. So famous scholars would come there, stay there somewhere near the temple. There would be a dharamshala to stay, and so discourses would be held, debates would be held in the annexes near the temples, attached to the temples. So people going to temples would also enlarge their vision because they would listen to excellent debates or get different points of view. Then I would also mention the ecosystem of vocational training because people might think that everybody was studying the Vedas. That's not true. By and large, most people were learning some vocation or skill. That there was an ecosystem for that. So in my second book, I'm also going to be talking about that. Not everyone wanted to be a Brahmana, and so the majority of the people learned sculpting, jewelry making, carpentry, or they trained to be physicians. And so, and there were more than 64 kalas or arts. So they say that there were people who were expert in all the 64 kalas. I'm not really sure of that, but that is mentioned quite a bit. And to learn these kalas, the students would become apprentices with the master craftsmen, live with them, observe how they conduct themselves in their life. What prayers do they say? How do they what do they eat? Alongside the actual craft, the skill, the students would observe how they lived. So this was another ecosystem of learning. And I want to point out that the much reviled Jati system actually was very conducive for learning. So children learn skills at a very young age. So imagine a child born in a carpenter's family would be watching the fathers and the uncles and the other members of the family making things with the wood, and also perhaps the ladies too. So everybody would be involved in that. And so at a very young age, the child would know everything about carpentry. Or if it was a barber's family, the child would know hair cutting. If it is a musician's family, then the child would know how to interpret different ragas, how to sing various ragas, or how to make instruments, all these things. So unlike today, when, even at the age of 22 and 23, when students graduate, they still don't have any skills and they cannot earn a livelihood. They need further training. But in those days, most of the people would get into some skill, the family profession, they would know about it and they would be able to contribute to the family income when they were just 15, 16 years of age. So this is the ecosystem of India that ecosystem of learning that kept India at the top. We were the top producers and of objects, of luxury items, and also of knowledge.
Thank you so much, Sahana ji. That is very fascinating, and I'm sure it involves. It's an ecosystem that spans across exploration to skills to everything we can imagine, and it's no wonder that it is a wonderful ecosystem that thrived for so long.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.